Hello everybody and welcome to this amazing top 5 worst perks for killers. We created a top 5 list such a long time ago, and over the time it's been heavily outdated since patches had been released and of course new killers came out giving new perks to the pool. Kind of fixed majority of the old problems but also added a bit of new ones, so we're kind of here to see to that. Let's revisit this list and find what are the top 5 worst perks for killers. The perks on this list will be comprised of perks that do not assist the killer in earning their victory or do not fulfill their purpose with any kind of value. We'll be judging all perks up to the most recent patch of 2.2.0, which includes the recently released killer Spirit. We'll only be looking at the tier 3 version of these perks in terms of comparison as well. Might mention a few other things, but mostly they're judged on tier 3. And with that out of the way, let's begin. Number 5. Spies from the Shadows. To be honest, there are a lot of perks that are pretty bad for killers. Unlike Survivor, it was pretty hard to pick only 5. And for killers, there were plenty of perks that are just simply bad. And Spies of the Shadows was just relatively a hard pick. We could have replaced it with quite a few others, and the order of this list was hard to make as well, but Spies from the Shadows seems to be number 5 worthy. This is a neutral perk for all killers at the start of the game. Essentially, it has a 75% chance that crows alert you that they flew off, as long as they are within 36 meters of you, the killer. This perk, at one point of its existence, was actually useful. People back then could run Calm Spirit to help counter it, but they also could not stop the crows from flying away in any other way. If you got close to a crow, it flew away. It also notified the killer. Nowadays, survivors are actually capable of crouching past crows, so they are still capable of sneaking past you. Back in the day, this wasn't a thing. You had to have Calm Spirit to do this, and so if someone was running Spies from the Shadows, they had to have Calm Spirit to get by you stealthily. However, today, just doing the old crouch past the crow trick works pretty damn well. But if they do alert a crow for some reason and you're not chasing them, well, you have a 1 in 4 chance that crow does not tell you that it went off. This crow also has to be in 36 meters of you, which is essentially standard terror radius of the base killer, like Trapper. So they'll be in your terror radius, the survivor knows you're there, they're not going to accidentally trip a crow, but on top of that, the crow had to be close enough to you. The conditions for this perk are silly, simply because within the radius of 36 meters, that crow's flying off can be heard by the killer in the direction it happened. You don't need a perk to tell you this. These crows are very audible, and you can hear them even if you don't want to hear them, you hear them. They are there. And if you happen to be chasing the survivor through a flock of crows, because God knows I have for testing this, several notifications can be thrown your way, which can actually throw you off, especially with the new patch here. Pebble is a diversion of sorts that causes a sound effect, which I thought right here in this video, that happened to me. It wasn't, it was the crow. I got crowed by my own crow. It was making fun of me. Why do I need a notification in the middle of a chase that the crow got alert? I was almost the one who alerted the crow. I mean, back in the day, the killer could alert the crows themselves, but thank God that was fixed quite a while ago. This isn't to say that this perk is useless. I mean, you can use it to some effect. Some people might find this useful to get the notifications as survivors try to sprint by a crow while you're actually chasing them. However, with some practice, maybe some headphones, you can eliminate the need for these notifications and instead find something more superior to fill this perk slot. Speaking of superior perks, there is one direct contender to Spies from the Shadows, and that would be Whispers. Instead of using crows to give you a directional notification, Whisper uses a 32-meter radius to alert you that a survivor is within that radius. Like many killers, that would be your general terror radius, which will help you know what section of the map to start combing for survivors. Being that Whispers is also a neutral perk, it is also just an outright superior version of Spies from the Shadows. Granted, Whispers is only good at tier 3. That was the only thing I was comparing in this, so what does it matter? I told you that at the beginning. But either way, I'm just giving you the warning. If you're picking up Whispers, level 3 is really when you will like that perk. Number 4. Unrelenting. Another neutral perk available to all killers from the start, Unrelenting was once king of perks, but has recently found itself on the list of worst perks for killers to date. Unrelenting increases the recovery between missed attacks. And back in the day, this actually also included successful attacks, so you got a cooldown on both. And like the godly saved the best for last, it was really good in combination. But alas, it was removed in order to prevent the great machine gun combo. Praise the day we get its return. Oh wait, we did. It saved the best for last. Currently, Unrelenting is a near useless perk for anyone beyond the starting ranks. This perk might work fine for those who are just starting or need to practice their basic attack swings, but otherwise the perk serves no point. The purpose to run this perk is to assume you're going to miss your attacks. And these attacks are not very hard to hit, mind you, but sometimes we take gambles and miss, and sometimes Unrelenting will be there to help you recover very slightly. But it's not going to make the difference to end that chase any faster, especially if you still have to go through a window, break a pallet, or you get stunned during the swing. I mean, hell, if you get stunned under a pallet, it's not going to recover you from that any faster. It's technically a miss, but the stun reset the miss into a you just got your ass stunned. Now, I also know that it can be a bit daunting to land lunging attacks on console with a controller, but with practice you'll come to find that you will not need Unrelenting for this really. Instead, you'll need Save the Best for Last to recover from the many more successful basic attacks you'll be landing as you dish out the pain to all these survivors. There are a couple of survivor perks like Dead Hardened Sprinters that can cause you to miss. Like, again, we're not denying that you might miss an attack. Nobody has 100% accuracy in this game. But I guess what we're just trying to push here is if you missed an attack and you recover 30% faster, I mean 30% of a low number is not that much, and a missed attack already recovers a lot faster than an actual hit. So the idea would be you want to get the perk that recovers more, because you'll probably be landing attacks more frequently, and you will likely need to recover a lot faster when you do successfully strike if you need to defend or take someone out. I mean, Save the Best for Last is the better perk hands down. Back when the machine gun combo existed, you would run Save the Best for Last and Unrelenting because they both provided both benefits. And back in the day, we had always thought that in order to nerf the machine gun combo, the idea here is you just needed to take it away from Unrelenting and give one perk the positive for successful and one perk the positive for missed attacks. And that's what we eventually got. Wasn't the case for a long time, but that's what we have now. And Unrelenting, unfortunately, is useless because nobody really cares when they miss an attack, especially not this doctor in this footage. I missed an attack around that loop there, as you saw, and it did not help at all. We still took the loops as is. Yay. Number 3, Monolith Shrine. Yet another neutral perk joins the list as possibly one of the most misleading perks of all time. Monolith Shrine causes the entity to sacrifice the survivor faster by 9%. It also increases the difficulty of escape attempts by 15%, and then increases the penalty of escaped attempts by 9%. Sounds great. You get to make it harder for the 4% chance to happen, the overall time they spend on the hook is reduced, and they die faster if they try to jump off. What could go wrong? Well, first let's start with that this works only on the hooks in the basement, meaning if you don't take them to the basement or you can't reach there, this perk is pointless. On top of this, you have to look at how it actually affects progress and luck. 9% faster sacrifice essentially means that it removes 5.4 seconds off each phase, which is a total of 10.8 seconds overall sacrificing. So you shred 10 seconds off of the entire 2 minutes they spend on the hook. If this perk were to affect all hooks, then this wouldn't be as bad, as it could put pressure on survivors to make saves faster, but I mean, it's still not that impressive. So let's look at the 9% additional penalty to struggling. If they actually try to jump off the hook, they increase the damage dealt to them by 9%. But I don't believe it's going to be a flat increase. Instead, it's going to be 9% of the penalty they are already given, which is 16 seconds approximately, 16.66. So then you take 9% of that's about a little over a second, and what do you have? You have 1 second penalty for trying to jump off the hook. This doesn't exactly take away any chances, however, this allows you to bleed about 3 seconds into the second phase more than you normally would have if they had instead not try to jump off the hook. So you are requiring someone who is in the basement to attempt to jump off the hook and actually want to get off and survive in order for this penalty to be really worth a damn. Which is why I go to say this is a pretty misleading perk, because if you really look at it, everything sounds nice as a penalty to the survivor, but then look at the 15% more difficult to jump off the hook. Does that mean it's a flat 15% against their luck? I doubt that. It sounds like it takes away 15% of their luck. Now, I don't believe anyone has tested this, and I don't know if there's a way that we can right now, being that that would take a hell of a lot of just attempts in general, taking a lot of percentages and a lot of leeway here. The issue is with how this works is if it is a flat 15%, that's fantastic. That means they cannot jump off the hook at all in the basement without running perks or offerings that counter that with luck. But if it is as what I think it is, it takes 4% and reduces that by 15%. Or of course, if they ran luck perks and add-ons, it reduces that by 15%. But at base, 4% down by 15. I mean, really, what are you gonna do? Now, of course, again, I'm not saying this perk is 100% useless, because the numbers do exist and it does take 10 seconds off the hook in the basement. Fantastic, cool, great, awesome, wonderful. But I know a lot of people are going to use this perk in their basement build, quote unquote, because it is like one of the few basement perks you actually have. Territorial Imperative, Iron Grasp, Agitation, and Monolith Shrine. It's there for a meme, it's there for fun, but is it there to be a perk you're going to ever use in a real match? No. And if you are using it, I'm so sorry, but I mean, at least have fun with it. That's what you should do. Number 2, Beast of Prey. Our first teachable perk from the Huntress at level 30, Beast of Prey removes your red stain for 25 seconds after Bloodlust activates, and there's a cooldown of 2 minutes after 25 seconds has passed. The major problem with this perk isn't the function or its purpose. In fact, the perk's concept is brilliant, as it would open up the ability to mind game around corners without having to moonwalk or fake your direction, which hinders your vision. So what's the problem? The problem is that the perk activates after 15 seconds of uninterrupted chase, and that's essentially Bloodlust. The problem is that you don't get to pick when this happens, it's timed, and the perk is more often than not going to activate in the worst locations and go on cooldown when you can actually use it. The feedback from this perk is relatively bad as well, since you can't see your own red stain, you don't know when it's gone. Instead, you have to refer to the perk on the bottom right to see if it hasn't faded, which removes your attention from the chase and opens you up to mistakes. And we all know a killer's mistake is far more damning than a survivor's. Beast of Prey falls prey to its own activation. It would be much more acceptable of a power if you could use a button to activate it for 25 seconds and then it goes on cooldown. With you being able to force the mind game yourself, you essentially benefit from the perk 100% of the time, instead of hoping that Bloodlust doesn't activate before you get the loops started, or at least, you know, it doesn't start and then you have to break a pallet and waste all of your time trying to chase in an open field. Although with activation aside, it isn't too strong in a lot of the current maps either. The strength of red stain is only there when the killer can't be seen, and unfortunately most maps consist of loops that have several holes in walls or over the debris that let the survivor see the killer and what direction they are approaching from. Example, Coldwind Farm, all the walls have holes from the kind of wooden sections, and you can see right through it and see which direction the killer is walking. When playing in maps like Treatment Theater, The Game, or even Crotus Pren, you could take damn good advantage of corners without the red stain. You'd be able to make much more effective plays if you were able to conceal your red stain, but again, this falls under the has to activate at the right time. And if you could activate it on your own, it could be indefinitely better. It could do so much for you. And honestly, at this point though, the way that it activates, you really don't have much of an option, and you're relying purely on luck that you can even use it. So with that being said, I unfortunately have to put it here at number 2, as realistically you're not going to get much use out of it. But let's never compare to this or any other perk on this list to how useless our next one is. Number 1, Surveillance. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the worst perk in the game of Dead by Daylight for both Killer and Survivor, the new Deja Vu before Deja Vu got reworked to something useful. Surveillance is taught from the pig at level 35, and I recommend you stay away from this perk unless you are a completionist and for some reason need it in your repertoire, and for whatever reason you want to use it. Good luck. Surveillance highlights regressing generators in white for 16 seconds. You can mark up to 3 generators at a time by kicking them. Do you see the issue already? The highlight only lasts for 16 seconds, and that is all it does. No notification the generator is touched, no notification that the 16 seconds have passed. Nothing. It just turns back to normal highlighted color when a survivor touches it or the 16 seconds have passed. There is absolutely no value in this perk, other than for achievements, as there is no real use. Sure, you can kick the generator and walk backwards, always watching it in hopes that a survivor touches it. But what do you do if 16 seconds pass? Do you question if the survivor touched it, or were you timing it? And if you were timing it, how were you watching the generator? Were you watching your phone, your stopwatch? What? At some point, this falls apart unless you are a god at keeping time in your head and can absolutely follow the 16 seconds and know when a survivor has touched it. In honesty, it baffles me how limiting the highlight to 16 seconds was even a good design choice at any point in time. I'm not even sure you can even highlight the 3 different generators in 16 seconds unless they were side by side. You'd likely be more stressed out trying to keep them all highlighted, but realize you can't highlight them again until the survivor touches them in the first place. Looking at this perk and how it could be useful, if the generator was highlighted until a survivor touched it, then that would make sense. You could actually watch the generators with that method. You could say, hey, didn't I break the gen in that direction over there and it's now no longer white? Maybe I should go check it out. So why apply a 16-second limit? The tiers of surveillance don't even make any sense. Each one allows you to kick 1 additional gen and mark it for 16 seconds. I don't think I've ever been able to walk between 2 separate generators within 16 seconds that were both slightly repaired enough for me to highlight both of them and even effectively use this, let alone a third one, because don't forget it takes time to actually kick the generator itself unless you're running brutal strength, and then you have to walk there. The walking is probably the problem. Unless someone touched the first generator you highlighted, then the highlight is already gone, and oh god, it gets so bad, it just hurts to think how even on paper this perk sounds like a good idea. And even if you could highlight all 3 generators within the 16 seconds, why would you want to do that? I'm pretty sure this perk is worse than original Deja Vu at this point. You at least know which direction to go for a generator when you run Deja Vu on a survivor. Here, I'm not sure what you're really accomplishing, to be honest. I'm actually getting frustrated trying to figure this perk out. I have reread this perk over 100 times just to be sure I'm not crazy. I played with it more than I should have, and by God, I tried everything to make it do more than highlight 1 generator. I couldn't do it. I realized that this is, without a doubt, the most useless perk for Dead by Daylight. The worst part about this perk is it's not old. It's relatively new. It came with the pig. It is her teachable. That's the other part. It's a teachable from a licensed killer who had the potential to be a great killer with this perk. Being able to surveillance multiple generators, it sounds like a good idea, but then you're just like, but that would be too OP. We need it done in 16 seconds. I mean, I guess they're trying to go for preventing the 3 generator trifecta and not allowing the killer to be able to know when those 3 gens are being touched, but I thought that was the purpose of this perk, you know? What other purpose does this perk have if not the 3 gen trifecta? And if you can't even do that, then the purpose you designed this perk for is literally to, hey guys, you want to waste blood points on a teachable? Maybe we'll put this in the shrine and hopefully someone wastes their iridescent shards on it. I pray that none of you have wasted iridescent shards on this perk, and I do apologize if you have. But I somehow believe deep down I'm just super crazy. And this perk has a secret benefit that I'm not aware of, and I am just that dense that I don't know how this perk works. And no matter how I read it, I will never know how this perk works. But maybe I'm right. Maybe it really is as bad, and everyone can calm my fears and make me feel a ton better about this. And that's really my list. What do you think? Are there perks that I missed out on? Is surveillance actually an amazing perk that I'm too dense to understand? Let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to give me your top 5 lists, and I'll see you all next time. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, good game.